It's getting really real, isn't it? The Texans, as they host a bunch of their visits, one of the guys that Aaron Wilson reported today, reported yesterday that the Texans will host a standout offensive tackle, Josh Conerly Jr., for a draft visit on Tuesday, per a league source, and no reason to doubt that there. Josh Conerly is an interesting one because you see him on average, he's going in the second round. About 33% of first round of mock drafts have him going in the first round. But a lot of people just say, yeah, no, he's definitely a late first round pick. Other people a little bit more skeptical of him. He's a guy that improved as the year went along. And the more I watch of him, especially when you watch him against guys like Abdul Carter from Penn State, you see a kid that does not flash and pop athletically like a guy that would go in the top 10 would, but he moves very fluidly. Mike Tice, the longtime NFL coach, has a son, Nate Tice, who does the 301 football podcast, or Football 301 on Yahoo Sports. And Nate had Mike Tice on, and he had Mike watch a bunch of film of these offensive linemen. Mike Tice was over the moon about Josh Conerly. I took the audio from some of his interview with his son, Nate Tice, and put it over these highlights of Josh Conerly. And I tend to agree with Mike Tice in a lot of the things that he says. I know as far as ranking guys, Mike Tice was very open about, hey, I'm not a scout. I'm not doing this full time or anything. I watched the film that Nate sent to me, but I agree with a lot of what he said.
Oh, he was my number one guy. Period. Number one offensive lineman in this draft. For me, I didn't get a chance to look it up, but whoever's the O-line coach at Oregon has done a tremendous job. This kid plays with great technique in all areas of the game. Pass sets, run game, out in space, footwork, down blocks, hand usage. This guy has a lot of traits. When you have that many good traits, you're a first half of the first round player. You're because he has so many good traits. That to me makes this guy a premier offensive tackle. There's not a lot to not like about him, unless he's got some blemish or some acne that I don't know about. Yeah, he gets a little bit narrow in the run game at times. I think that's something that he could continue to work on. Dave, when I look at my notes, everything is good on the backside, good pulling on the edge in space. Great uses of his arms and hands and protection. Here's another guy that gets his hands and plays with his hands out in front of him, which is going to allow him to not get edgy in the National Football League when you're playing week after week against great edge pass rushers. I just don't know how you can hurt yourself drafting a player like this.
Yeah, so that was obviously very high praise. One thing that Nate Tice had brought up, and I agree, having not watched every single one of his games, but just watching as the season progressed and seeing, we'll watch a little bit of him versus Abdul Carter, that he doesn't have his grown man strength yet, and he's perfectly willing to play physically. It just seems like at times his lower body strength is a lot more about his willingness to keep his legs driving, and he'll lean into guys and he gets after it. But at times it doesn't look like he holds up to power as well as you really want. But having said that, he's really a guy that got better at that element of the game as the season went along. And I think is more athletic than a lot of the measurables would suggest. If you look at what Daniel Jeremiah said, athletic frame with solid bulk and long arms, lined up at left tackle for the Ducks in the pass game. He pops out of his stance with quick feet, and he's patient with his hands. I agree with that, yes. He can cut off speed rushes and effectively redirect versus counters. He does have some hit tightness and lacks ideal sink and bend. He lunges on occasion, putting himself in bad positions. In the run game, he fits well initially, but it needs to improve his ability to stay attached and finish. Plays under control at the second level and out in space. Overall, isn't an elite athlete, but he has the tools to develop into a solid starter in time. I guess the big question here becomes, all right, is this who you want right now on this team? If he's still a little bit of a work in progress, if maybe he needs to work on his overall strength, and you already have guys that are presumably going to start at offensive tackle right now, including Blake Fisher, who you're still bringing along. My appetite is for an interior offensive lineman. I think that the Texans and bringing him in, I think, are very intrigued by him. And I know best player available, et cetera, et cetera. I could see a lot of teams looking at him as, all right, maybe he slips into the early part of the second round and we trade up. Maybe we use one of those extra third-round picks to get him. But I'd be excited about his potential and upside if they do take him. Listen, Retired Row, I'm with you. I'm having trouble keeping up all the additions we've added so far. So excited about how much further we'll go this year. Yeah, and I've still Jarrell Taylor there, the defensive end. I've got film on him, and I need to bring in. There's free agency acquisitions that I probably haven't spent as much time. Offensive line is the pain point right now. Have to say he does look good at tackle. I think they'll take the lineman from Bama. So Tyler Booker's an interesting one because Tyler Booker did not test well. He's not overly athletic, but he checks off all the intangible boxes. He checks off the size and strength and technique boxes. It's just that I think people have reservations about his athleticism. I think ultimately he probably goes at the back end of the first round just because of his body of work and his pedigree and everything else that goes along with it. And he's got some of those Will Anderson traits. Ibuka and Tyler Booker are the two guys right now where I wonder if the Texans, in valuing swarm qualities and swarm traits, will have those guys higher than perhaps some other people do. And I know Buka ran real well and ran above expectations. But given just what the consensus is, I could see the Texans maybe valuing the intangibles for those guys more so than other teams, especially when what they're really trying to do is hammer home the swarm mentality on offense. Give me big dudes like Philly. They like Kenyon Green. You want to go out and get yourself a Kenyon Green? I'm just joking. I'm not sure. I agree with you as far as just taking big, strong, physical dudes. And look, at this point, I see some of you asking about various other guys. Yeah, there's a lot. This is the thing about 25. At 25, you're frankly like somebody who might be 35 years old and you want to have kids, but you're single. You got to start making some compromises. But if you make those compromises, the field is huge. You just got to lower your expectations a little bit. And that's why sometimes having the 25th pick is more stressful than having the 5th pick, because there's only so many guys that you really feel like are worth a number 5 overall. This draft has a boatload of dudes that I think are viable, either or fathers to your children or 25th pick overall in the draft. Trade up to get Loveland. I don't think you might not have to trade up to get Loveland. That's the beauty of the draft as well.